All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Nora Willis, and I'm from the Director's Office at DFCS. We welcome you to our quarterly DFCS Community Forum. Some reminders before we get started into our presentations is if you please do mute your mic unless you're speaking during the presentation. The presentation slide set is currently posted at our Caregiver Supports and Community Information site. That was also in the email reminder that was sent out. Just scroll down to the Community Forum section and click on the plus for the presentation materials. We are also recording this and we will have that posted within the week in the same location. There will be a time for questions at the end of each topic. And if you have questions during the presentation, please type them in chat, or you can hold your questions until it opens up and unmute yourself. But our preference is that you do use the chat so that we can collect all of them to make sure that we can get all questions answered. Next slide, please. So our agenda is we'll start with the formal introduction by our exec team. Then we will have oh my goodness, I can't remember which one is first. The Continuum of Care Services and the Welcoming Center. Yes, they're first, and then followed by the Child Abuse and Neglect Center. And then we'll have a Q&A with our execs and wrap it up. So with that, let's go to the next slide. And I'm going to start with Gilbert. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh my goodness. Let's back up. Back up. We're doing the, see, I got too much going on. Okay. We're going to start with our introduction. Execs, go ahead.
Good morning, everybody. This is Damian Wright, one of the interim directors for DFCS. Glad to see everybody on the virtual screen. Today, hopefully we'll hear about, I know we'll hear about the wonderful partnerships that we have, not only with Seneca and the work that we do at our Welcoming Center, but we'll also hear about what we're doing at the Child Abuse and Neglect Center and working with our communities and children and families. Again, definitely glad to see you all. And I'll turn it over to Miss Wendy.
Thanks, Damien. Wendy Kinnear-Roush, the other Assistant Director for DFCS for Programs and Prevention. Wonderful. We're almost at 75 persons for today. Excited about the opportunity to share information for all of you to learn and to collaborate. So thank you for being here today. Nora, back to you.
All right. So let's go ahead to our first presentation. Continuum of Care Services and the Welcoming Center. So Gilbert.
Good morning, everybody. We'll go ahead and introduce our presenters first, and then we'll go on. I'm Gilbert Murillo. I work for the Family Support Bureau. I'm an SSPM3, and we're going to be partnering with Matt and Kaylee. So maybe Matt, if you want to introduce yourself next.
Sure thing. Thanks, Gilbert. And hi, everybody. Thanks so much for being here today. My name is Matt Kamen. I'm the Regional Executive Director for Santa Clara County with Seneca Family of Agencies.
Kali?
Yeah. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kali Singh, and I'm a Senior Researcher with DFCS. You can go to the next slide, please. Yeah. Thank you. So yeah, I'll be presenting a brief overview of the Welcoming Center evaluation. So when we had this forum last time, I had shown differences in the Welcoming Center outputs compared with the Keiki Center, which was the previous receiving center. However, as of May 2021, all children and youth had gone through the Welcoming Center. So this part of the evaluation is looking at children and youth who went through the Welcoming Center from July of 2021 to March of 2022. And we're comparing that with a group of children and youth who went through the Welcoming Center the same time period 1 year later, which is July 2022 to March 2023. So when we're looking at children and youth who newly entered care, you can see in line with Santa Clara County's approach towards removing less children from their homes, they were in fact successful in doing this. So last year during the same time period, 178 children and youth newly entered care versus just 154 children during the same time period in 2022 to 2023. And when we look at the percentage of those groups that went through the Welcome Center, we see that 53% of the cohort from 2021 went through the Welcome Center, and this time it was slightly less at about 49%. The key changes we see here, though, are actually when we look at the stay and overstay in the Welcome Center. So when we look at the average overall stay in the Welcome Center, which should be less than 24 hours, we see that in the previous cohort, it was 1.6 days. However, this cohort, the average increased by 1 day to 2.7 days. And when we look at the overstay, we actually see greater differences there. So when we look at the number and percentage of children who overstayed beyond 24 hours, during the cohort from 2021 to 2022, 28% had overstayed, versus in this current cohort, it's actually 32% who overstayed. And when we look at the overstay time, that actually doubled. So this is, again, those who stayed beyond 24 hours. So it went from 3.6 days during the previous cohort to 7.3 days during this cohort. I think what's important to note here, though, is the Welcome Center is just one small part of this much broader continuum of care. And we need to take into account the acuity of the children coming through, as well as the complexity of their needs. So in line with that, we wanted to go ahead and look at the number and percentage of children who stayed in the Welcome Center more than once, which would kind of support the hypothesis that we have more children with complex needs coming through. And while the absolute number is pretty small for both cohorts, 2 versus 6, percentage-wise, it actually quadrupled. So the previous cohort having just 2% going through more than once versus this cohort having 8% going through. So again, I think just pointing to the importance that this is, these results cannot really be attributed just solely to the Welcome Center, but really taking into account the continuum and the complexity of children's needs. So with that, I'll pass it over to Gilbert to speak more to that point.
Thanks, Holly. So I think one of the things I just want to, emphasize too and talk about a little more, because we figure out, like she mentioned, the number percentage of children who stayed in the Welcoming Center, right? We went from 2 from the last time as compared to 6. And that has to do a lot with the acuity, right, of the children. And most of these are that we're talking about, they're teens, right? So they're teens with very high behaviors that either come and stay for a bit past the 24 hours. Some of these can be attributed to those youth who come in and go out, in the same day overnight, who AWOL or run away from the Welcoming Center and then make the way back into the Welcoming Center. So we are dealing with a number of youth. So for the most part, those 6 or the 8% of the population that we're talking about are the same youth, right, that we constantly continue to work with in terms of working with them, working in finding additional resources so we are able to provide, the stability and the placement that these youth need. But, saying that, we also find ourselves sometimes with challenges that some of these youth, again, go the in and out of the Welcoming Center. So, but overall, as Holly was mentioning, right, there's a great partnership between the Welcoming Center and DFCS. When we strategize, we've taken upon to do some meetings as well. We invite some of the staff at the Welcoming Center when we do placement staffings at DFCS, because we want to also learn about how children are and what their needs are while they're at the Welcoming Center. And I know that Matt is going to get more into the details about, the partnership and some of the things that we've done to ensure that we get these youth to placement. But again, I think the collaboration is very important, and I know that Matt's going to, say some stories, but in some of these overstayers, I just want to mention a story where, we were working with the social worker, the Welcoming Center staff, DI staff working really, really diligently on trying to work with the parents so we can be able to return a child home versus, taking this child to placement. So, but, as a result, this young lady needed to stay at the Welcoming Center more than the average stay. But at the end of the day, we were able to very successfully return her back to the mother with resources. So that's a lot of the the conversations and the partnerships that we deal with the Welcoming Center, particularly with this youth again that come and go from the Welcoming Center, and as we continue to work on, finding a stable placement for these young individuals, for these young youth. So at this point, I'm going to have Matt kind of jump in and really talk about, again, some of these success stories and, a great collaboration that we've done between our agencies.
Sure thing. Would you mind going on to the next slide, please? Great, thank you. So to elaborate a little on that, I wanted to be able to give an impression to everybody here today, to support, to sort of add on to the data from the previous side and talk a little bit about what the work at the Welcoming Center looks like after 2 years. We just celebrated our 2-year anniversary back in May. So I wanted to talk about a couple of things. I wanted to share about a somewhat recent youth satisfaction survey that we put into place, and then talk a little bit about how the broader continuum of care and collaboration with the Welcoming Center is working to support youth with some of the complex and unique needs that Gilbert was speaking to. So part of our approach to welcoming all children into the Welcoming Center and helping them feel comfortable is making sure that during their stay, they know who that they can speak to improve their stay with us. So we regularly connect with kids during their stay about preferences, needs, but to gather some more information and help drive ongoing quality improvement in our program, last August, we implemented a new youth satisfaction survey that youth can fill out optionally and anonymously when they are transitioning out of the Welcoming Center. We offer it to every youth 12 and over and have a process that allows them to fill it out anonymously if they choose to do so. The survey is relatively short, but has a series of statements that it asks youth to respond to. Statements like, I felt safe and comfortable, and children can respond with strongly agree all the way to strongly disagree. We've gathered 36 responses from youth so far, and are really proud to say that 84% of those responses are favorable or positive. There's also space on the survey to write in suggestions or comments. The overwhelmingly common theme of those statements that children choose to write is praise for staff that they encountered being kind, being helpful, supportive, present, engaging. One suggestion for improvement that we really appreciated was adding drawers to the bedrooms to help with clothing organization, and especially if children, as was just stated, are staying a little bit longer than 24 hours. That's something that felt responsive and helpful, so that was a change that we made right away. And we're always considering ways that we can adjust to improve the experience for youth in our care, especially as some of the demographics, as you've seen, have been changing. So we're continuing to talk as a leadership team about ways that we can incorporate opportunities for youth feedback to really make sure that we're hearing about the experience from the youth that are at the Welcoming Center directly. In addition, to highlight some of the collaboration that Gilbert was referring to, I wanted to just give a couple of stories with details omitted and names changed to talk about some of the sort of common themes that we see come up for youth that come to the Welcoming Center with really complex needs. So the first one I'll tell you about Kira. And I wanted to highlight that while the Welcoming Center is really an entry point for children and youth coming into care, wanted to highlight the ways in which the Welcoming Center team collaborates with a wide variety of service providers through DFCS and behavioral health and other community organizations to really create a broad and interconnected and individualized continuum of care for youth, especially our young people that are experiencing significant behavioral health needs. So Kira was a young person that came to the Welcoming Center at a really difficult moment in her life, without family available to care for her and with pretty complex behavioral health needs. And the disconnection she had experienced from family really contributed to a lot of hopelessness and challenges connecting with others, as you might imagine, including care providers. And given some of these needs, it was challenging for DFCS to quickly identify a resource family home that was able to meet all of those needs. So one of the things we did, and which we do for young people that come in this circumstance, is the Welcoming Center staff quickly connected Kira with the Immediate Stabilization Services Program, which is a short-term, immediate, and intensive behavioral health support program. That team came to the Welcoming Center and began working to support Kira's stabilization and to address some of the immediately presenting behavioral health needs to support her transition to a home. One of the things that was tough about this situation is that Kira continued to experience some placement disruption. However, that ISS team was able to stay with her and provide some consistency and some ongoing counseling through some really difficult transitions. The Welcoming Center team also worked with her social worker to refer Kira to wraparound services because that team would be able to stick around for longer and to start working on some of the really important permanency efforts that would be important for her ongoing success. The team also was aware that Kira would really benefit from a home within the Intensive Services Foster Care Plus, or ISFC Plus program, which is a model that incorporates intensive behavioral health services into a specially trained FFA caregiver's home with a caregiver available 24/7. When a home became available, the Welcoming Center team really worked carefully with the caregiver and the social worker involved and behavioral health providers to plan a very thoughtful transition, which included that behavioral health team coming to the Welcoming Center and meeting Kira in an environment where she was already feeling some comfort and had some relationships that she was building so that we could lend some of those relationships to a new team. The team helped facilitate pre-placement visits with the new caregiver and really helped work with Kira to identify and then voice her concerns and hesitancies and questions so that she could have all of that out and on the table for the team prior to a transition. That kind of thoughtful transition planning really contributed to success for this young person in this caregiver's home. She transitioned successfully, and latest report after many months is that she's doing really well and bonding with that caregiver. And so I wanted to share that story because I think it really represents within the complexities that present with some of the youth coming into the Welcoming Center, the collaborative work that's done to really respond to individual needs and make sure that there's thoughtfulness in really complex and difficult transition planning. And then if I have a moment, I'll share just one more because, I think ultimately the work that we're doing at the Welcoming Center throughout the continuum and with behavioral health and DFCS is working to support permanency and permanent plans for the youth that are coming through the Welcoming Center. And so I want to talk a little bit about Eric and his family. Eric is one of the youth that was mentioned that had been to the Welcoming Center more than once after experiencing a number of disruptions. He had a complex experience of trauma that impacted his trust of others and connectedness with others. And so one day the Welcoming Center staff received notification that a younger child was coming to the Welcoming Center after a really sad event with their caregiver. And after the child arrived, the Welcoming Center recognized some of the information about the child and in coordination with the social worker learned that it was Eric's younger sibling. That younger sibling was significantly distressed, as could be expected upon arrival, and our staff did what they do to help the child feel safe and meet basic needs. And also the staff engaged in further discussion with the social worker about supporting a visit between Eric and his sibling at the Welcoming Center to really help assist with family connection in a moment where that connection had been disrupted. The Welcoming Center staff and the social worker invited Eric back to the site, and Welcoming Center clinicians helped facilitate a visit between Eric and his younger sibling. This was really beneficial, we thought, to both youth because Eric received a lot of praise from staff about how he was caring for his younger sibling. And the sibling was also able to connect with family and hear from family that they had been to the Welcoming Center, which helped them feel safer in the environment that they were in for the time being. When a resource family was identified for the younger sibling, Eric supported the sibling in meeting the caregiver and asked questions and helped engage in dialogue that ultimately helped the siblings feel better about the situation and helped the younger sibling transition successfully into the caregiver's home. And as I said, ultimately, in our efforts toward permanency, family is permanent. And so being able to engage a sibling in this way was unique, but I think a really important moment in helping mitigate the really difficult situation that these siblings were in. So I think those are some examples of some of the complexities that come up at the Welcoming Center and how the Welcoming Center's team works with a variety of other folks to really help maintain its mission of minimizing the traumatic experiences that can be happening at the moments when children are coming into care. So that's what I wanted to share. I also just quickly wanted to share for folks that are here today that have supported the Welcoming Center as resource parents or partners from other community organizations or otherwise. I just want to say thank you for being a part of those stories and a part of the work that really helps the Welcoming Center be the caring and safe place for children that they deserve. It really takes this partnership and community involvement and effort. So thank you. And I'll pass it back.
All right, thank you. Do we have any questions on the presentation you just heard? Let's see, we have a hands. Okay, we have something in chat. Amanda asked, can you speak a bit about the satellite homes? What is the relationship between the satellite homes and a welcoming center? How is it determined that a youth should go to a satellite home from or instead of the welcoming center? How does the staffing and clinical support in satellite homes compare to that in the welcoming center?
So I can address that question, Nora. So there again, we have the satellite homes, through DFCS. So when youth come to the welcoming center, and depending on the capacity, there's conversations between the welcoming center and the satellite staff to figure out if we are able to move any youth that are at the welcoming center into scatter sites. So really depending on the milieu that the Welcoming Center has and the milieu that the scatter sites have. So we are always working, again, it's another part of the collaboration where, if we need to move children, again, particularly those youth that potentially be, coming in and out of the Welcoming Center, when we have space at the satellite homes, we make an arrangement and transition youth from the Welcoming Center into the satellite homes.
The one piece I want to add, this is Damien. The one piece I do want to add is that the scattered sites or satellite homes are in the same and or will be in the same category as a welcoming center, as transitional shelter care facilities. In regards to the milieu, the services that Matt actually talked about, ISS as well as PSS, which is placement stabilization services, are also available to all of our youth in the scatter sites, as well as linkages, including the work with our educational liaisons and other services that the youth need that have to stay at the scatter sites in the interim while we find placement.
And then just one to add, to Amanda's question, youth sometimes go directly to the scatter sites, but we do an intake through the Welcoming Center. But then youth can go directly to a satellite home.
All right, we have one hand raised. Raul?
Yes, good morning, everyone. Is the Welcoming Center the same as the receiving center was once run by DFCS? Just so I have an understanding.
Yes, Mr. Raul, it is our intake operations is what I would call it, because it handles all of the new entries that come in from children removals. So it's a partnership between, in this case, a community-based provider as well as the county that we oversee those particular processes. There is some changes in the works, which I'm sure some people are aware of. Seneca has agreed to partner with us even further. We'll be taking administrative oversight over the Welcoming Center in the next several months, and we're working with Seneca to do so.
Okay.
But they will
Thank
still
you.
provide the. I was just going to add, they're still going to provide the service delivery. I'm sorry.
As a follow-up then, is then Seneca as a service provider subject to evaluation and review by the juvenile justice system as was the receiving center? And if so, has a report been written regarding the services and looking at the issues from a different lens?
Definitely. I'll have Matt reply, but not only are they inspected by the Juvenile Justice Commission, the scatter site homes are as well as Matt can speak to the commission that they're certified by. So.
Sure. Thank you for the question. And it's timely. We just invited the Juvenile Justice Commission for their annual tour. I believe it was last week. It might have been the week before that. They did a tour the previous year as well and wrote a report, which is published on their website. And we also worked with them to give tours prior to opening as well. So we've been in contact with them regularly. We also currently are licensed by Community Care Licensing, a department of the Department of Social Services, California Department of Social Services. They have their own licensing regulations and unannounced tours, and we're subject to their oversight as well.
Okay, thank you, Matt. Another related issue is in terms of the staffing composition. How do you provide culturally competent and linguistically appropriate services to the youth that are coming through the system?
Yeah, great question. I appreciate that. I think I would speak to efforts that we make starting with our hiring practices and our job postings. We certainly make recruitment efforts from all areas of the county to make sure that as best we can, our staff are representative of the young people that are coming into care. We have a large number of bilingual Spanish speaking staff and also have access to translation services as needed if youth come in and there aren't staff on site that speak in a preferred language for youth or for families. Our staff also have annual training requirements, both through the county and through our organization around cultural competency and cultural responsiveness. We've worked with some community organizations and folks through DFCS. I'm thinking specifically of the African American hair care. I'm forgetting the exact program that DFCS sponsored, but connected with her to do an evaluation of our responsiveness for youth coming in, and have worked with other folks as well to sort of get that outside perspective in addition to the sort of internal training requirements we have for our team members.
Okay, thank you. And one final, this is more of a suggestion or recommendation, and that is if you could provide in future presentations demographic data regarding the individual youth, gender, ethnicity, who are entering the system, and those that are the overstayers, the people that exceed the 1-day stay, the 24-hour stay. That would be helpful.
Definitely, we can follow up with that, Raul. Another piece is that this also is attached to some of our board presentations. So we'll look and see what we can provide to this group in regards to some of the data that Kali and others have worked on.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, thank you. So let's go ahead and move on to our next presentation. This is the Child Abuse and Neglect Center. Tracy Bowers will give the presentation. Tracy?
Good morning, everyone. I get 10 more minutes, right? Because we had 2 minutes worth of questions, right? Right. Okay. Good morning, everyone. I'm delighted to share valuable information about our Child Abuse and Neglect Center, commonly known as the CAN. I want you to know that I have my supervisors attending the session this morning. If you all can monitor the chat for me, I'd appreciate it. Thank you, representatives. At the CAN, we are committed to safeguarding children and providing support to families in need. Throughout this presentation, we will explore the various aspects of our center, including call and report statistics, response determinations, and different types of reports. Let's dive right in. Next slide. Thank you. Okay. One of the critical functions of the CAN is to receive and handle calls and reports related to child abuse and neglect. In the past year, we received a total of 28,170 calls and reports highlighting the pressing needs for our service within the community. Of these calls and reports, we had referrals and of the calls and reports, referrals that were investigated were 6,458. Referrals that were evaluated out, 3,247. Calls that were information only is 12,937. And non-reports was 5,521. At the CAN, we understand the urgency of the situations presented to us. To provide swift assistance, we've implemented measures to ensure an efficient response. So on average, our dedicated team members answer calls within 30 seconds, minimizing wait times for concerned individuals seeking help. Certain periods experience high call volume times than others. Our records indicate that the months of September to October and November to the end of the school year are typically observed as heightened call activity. Recognizing these patterns helps us to allocate resources effectively and maintain the level of our service our communities deserves. It is crucial to acknowledge the role of a mandated reporter. You can go to the next slide. Thank you. It is crucial to acknowledge the role of the mandated reporters in identifying and reporting cases of child abuse and neglect. Out of 28,170 calls received, an impressive 89% of them came from our mandated reporters, indicating the proactive efforts of professionals involved in the welfare of children. Only 1,070 calls were made by non-mandated reporters. When it comes to responding to reports of child abuse and neglect, we employ different response determinations based on the severity and urgency of each situation. So let's explore the 3 main response categories that we utilize. Joint response. You want to go to the next slide? Okay. Let me tell you about joint response. Joint response is where child abuse or neglect has occurred or there is a substantial risk, and a joint response is initiated by law enforcement. Then the next category would be an immediate response. An immediate response refers to the time frame of 2 to 24 hours within each of our response determinations that we have to respond to. And then the third category would be a 10-day response, which we have up to 10 days to do the assignment, and the risk category is not as immediate as the other 2 categories. Okay, so this screen represents other methods of reporting. As you can see, telephone calls is our highest and most common method of reporting, with 27,108 calls received. These calls primarily come from concerned individuals seeking assistance or providing information about potential child abuse and neglect cases. The next category is written reports. We also receive written reports via mail, emphasizing the importance of providing alternative channels of reporting. We received 733 written reports in this past year, contributing valuable information or scars for investigations. Thirdly, police reports. Law enforcement agencies play a crucial role in identifying and reporting child abuse and neglect, and yes, they send over written reports. Email and faxes. Technology has facilitated the reporting process. We received 20 reports via e-fax and 9 reports in regards to the old-fashioned fax machines that are converted over to e-faxes through email. Languages and law enforcement collaborations. To ensure effective communication and accessibility, we accommodate multiple language. English remains the primary language for most of our calls, with 24,211 calls reported in English. Spanish follows closely with 511 calls, and we received 33 calls in Vietnamese. Further collaboration with law enforcement agencies is also crucial in our mission to protect children. In the past year, law enforcement reached out to us for a joint response, and that was a total of 233 calls. Next slide. So I shared earlier what the response determinations look like. Calls that meet criteria, we go out and we do investigations. Calls that are evaluated out, and then calls that are received for information only. And those could be multiple calls from service providers, calling back with information or asking questions. And non-reports are those calls that do not meet criteria. Okay. Next slide. Thank you. All right. The Child Abuse Hotline for Santa Clara County will be updating its menu of options. So when you call us, our menu of options will be updated. It was supposed to take place June 26th. Oh, not of 2021, but this summer. It was supposed to be effective, but there's still some technical issues that they are trying to iron out. This update is to enhance efficiency and provide more streamlined services. The revamped menu aims to ensure that callers are promptly directed to appropriate resources, saving valuable time for both the caller and for our social work screeners. The updated menu includes language selection options and provides guidance for different types of inquiries. So for instance, if callers can choose options related to law enforcement have this very special line dedicated to them. There's going to be a line for general information, a line for community resources, and also to find addresses and records of child abuse and neglect, or do we have an open case and things of that nature. There's a special line that goes straight to screeners for filing reports or speaking to screeners. And then there will be a special menu option for complaints or grievances. And then also a line that will transfer you over to the our child abuse prevention line for training. The menu also emphasizes the importance of reporting in good faith. It provides instructions for mandated reporters on paperwork, having paperwork and information readily available, what we need available. And callers are encouraged to contact emergency services or leave a message if the matter is not urgent. These changes aim to optimize the hotline's functionality and improve experiences for those who are seeking assistance. Okay. In conclusion, our Child Abuse and Neglect Center stands as a pillar of support and protection for children in our community. Through our dedicated team, efficient call management, and various response determinations, we strive to ensure the well-being of children and while providing support to families in need. By fostering collaboration with mandated reporters, law enforcement agencies, community members, we continue to make a significant impact in the lives of those affected by child abuse and neglect. Thank you for your attention. Were there any other questions? Anything in chat? No?
Nothing in chat, but it is open up for questions now. Does anyone have any questions for Tracy?
Well, thank you.
Okay, we have one question here. Amanda asked, does the CAN Center use the SDM to make decisions about how to characterize a report?
For response determination, yes, we do. There's a hotline screening tool that accompanies every referral that comes in that meets criteria.
Any other questions? All right, thank you. So I think we can move to the next slide, and we're going to open this up for Q&A with our directors. Does anybody have any questions for them?
And while we're waiting, I know we got Kathleen King. Go ahead.
Just on that last data, this is all new to me. Is that a normal number? Does that fit the trend you normally see? Is it worse since COVID ended? Just curious.
Ms. King, Jamie, did you want me to answer that?
No, go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. It somewhat matches our pre-COVID days, and then as COVID hit, we hit a sharp decline that very first year, and then we slowly began to see it ramp back up. So we are back to those pre-COVID days.
And the one thing I'll add to that, Ms. King, is that even though there was a dip or a lull in regards to reporting, it wasn't as significant as other things that happened during COVID. So CAN Center was pretty busy, but like Tracy indicated, it's back to those pre-COVID numbers as of now in regards to calls that we're getting. And that actually gets to something, I don't know, Wendy, maybe you want to touch on this a little bit, but I know we've had conversation around mandated reporting and mandated supporting. So maybe we could speak a little bit to that. And just as a number to sit on, 30%, only 30% of our referrals are substantiated or inconclusive. The rest of them are unfounded. So what that means is there's a lot of referrals that come through our doors that we investigate where there isn't a situation where that family needs our intervention. And that goes to maybe conversation of how do we work with the community in regards to some of the support that's out there in regards to community resources. So I'll turn it over to Wendy.
Thanks, Damian. So there has been shifts in regulations to move from mandated reporting to mandated supporting. You'll see this in our training changes out to everyone. I can put a drop in the link about how you can get linked up to support getting connected with that training as we continue to build out our community resources and supports with the community around making sure community is connected with those resources that exist.
Katie's hand, and then there's a question in chat. The question is, it would be interesting to see the demographics of children who are being called on and what calls are being screened out or in. That's definitely some data that we can actually share with you. That's on the CQIP site, and it actually breaks down a lot of that demographic data. There is some disproportionality in that, definitely with our Latino population as well as our African ancestry population. So definitely something we would encourage conversation around. But Katie, I think you had your hand up.
I work for a school district, so with all the different social workers throughout the district, and there's a lot of questions coming up regarding our mandated reporting, and kind of follows through the statistics you showed, the low number that actually meets qualifications for supports. Is there somebody on staff who could do like an in-person Q&A information session for our school district's social workers to better understand the process after a report is made? Because sometimes it feels like we're doing what we're legally required for no reason.
I wouldn't say that, but definitely what I would say is, as I'm seeing Tracy smile, she's one of our senior managers. I know Miss Melissa Suarez, if she's on, she's another one of our senior managers that definitely go out into the community and provide both perspectives in regards to what happens in regards to the hotline, what is actually a referral that will be generated based on that SDM criteria, and then what happens when we go out and investigate, and they kind of give those perspectives. So that's definitely something either those two ladies and or someone else from our staff can do that. We have done that in the past regularly with some of the school districts, so I'm sure that's not an issue for us to do that in the future.
What I wanted to lift up, Damien, the reason why I'm smiling, hello, Miss Katie Taylor, good to see you. I had shared this with another colleague. We actually have a prevention unit, and one of our biggest reporting sources are educational professionals. And I feel that we need to have a stronger relationship with our education community in Santa Clara County. Our education community relies upon state training, not local training. So they don't get trained by what happens in terms of what is happening in Santa Clara County. And I would love to see a partnership between us in regards to training in regards to a local area. So I shared with a colleague in prevention, I said, we need liaisons from the schools to talk about local training. So now it's out in the atmosphere. Can we make it happen? For our educators to be trained on mandated reporting in Santa Clara County, not at the state level. So maybe you can help us champion that and get liaisons from the schools to talk about reporting in Santa Clara County. Give me a call. I'm at the department.
So next question is, staff are very familiar with reporting and feeling discouraged that nothing is being done when they do call. So this question is about what happens when calls occur and maybe there's multiple calls on a family, and maybe that referral isn't generated because it doesn't meet criteria, and or there's investigation and there's no abuse or neglect to be found. That conversation, I think, is definitely something as a community, right? We should have more of in regards to the understanding of there is a tool that we use that is available to everybody. You can pull it up on the internet. You can look through it. You can see how social workers make assessments, how they make decisions. And I think walking through not only that tool, but the definitions, because we're actually doing that internally, to support around how do we communicate around a family that does need some support, however, maybe not some level of intervention by the department. And what does that look like? I think that's a helpful conversation for us to have as communities. I think Katie and Tracy were talking about particularly the school district, but I think for our larger community, we definitely want to figure out how do we have that ongoing conversation of families that need some level of support. And I'll turn it over to Wendy.
Damien, before you go, I just want to respond to Kaylee. We have done that with Kaiser, both the San Jose office and the Santa Clara office. We've done it with Stanford. Melissa's spoken to that group up there. There are a couple of networks that are going on with healthcare providers, and we've also done it with VMC. I've done it with O'Connor Hospital as well. So we are open to working with medical providers as they're available. I'm also excited to share that Kaiser has really partnered with the hotline. They send over their resident interns. That is a part of their training. They have to spend a day doing community interviews, and they come over to the hotline and we do a one-on-one session with residents. So before they're free to go and practice, they learned about child abuse and neglect.
Thanks, Tracy and Damien. I would add to the discussion as well. I'm going to drop in chat both the manager in prevention, Byron Myers, who supports the mandated reporter training in our partnership with Seneca. I'll also drop in those flyers into chat for anyone that needs them. Absolutely, we'll partner around that. I would also bring into this space that we, in the build out of Santa Clara County's Families First Prevention Plan that is due to the state by July, there is in there a partnership with the school wellness centers and a partnership with the schools, and how do we build out that communication, both in knowing what's available in community. So that will be a priority for Santa Clara County, both on the probation side and the child welfare side, in partnership with community for the next several years. And I would also add into this space, we have been working hard over the last year in our partnership with Valley Medical Center staff out at the NICU and other places, as well as with the CAC Child Abuse Center, in order to improve our collaboration related to medical staff and that communication. So would welcome additional partnership as we try to build out both education and partnership to make sure all of our mandated reporters have what they need, not needing to call child welfare for just getting resources for families.
Righty. Any other questions or follow-up to that particular conversation? Okay. Wendy, you want to talk about the question we got last meeting?
Yeah, so we had, typically we'll have some questions that are submitted via email. And so one of the questions that was pending after the last forum that we had was really some clarification around when we seek parental consent when we are going out to the schools to interview children. And so we'll send out drop a formal written response in chat as well. But just clarifying for everyone, pending some case decisions back in 2009, you'll probably hear the names Green versus Camreta. The child welfare needs to seek parental consent whenever we are interviewing children at school or elsewhere, as long as it's safe to do so. So we will always seek parental consent before interviewing children unless there is exigency in a situation, or unless we're seeking parental consent would endanger a child or compromise the investigation. Then in those situations, we will seek parental court orders. So just clarifying for everyone, there's some clear parameters around that, and I'll drop that information into chat.
Alrighty, so as we have about a few minutes, we'll wrap it up in regards to this particular meeting. I know Wendy has some information she'll share, and then I'll close.
Perfect. Nora, do you want to pull up the slide that kind of closes us out and talks about our next forum? Perfect. Thank you. So again, thank you all for joining us. We have these on a regular basis. So our next one is set up for August 30th. We are going to take a look at possibly moving these to an afternoon time in order to best support those that need to attend. And then our next quarterly community forum will be on November 10th. And of course, if questions are coming up in the interim, please submit those at the link provided below to the DFCS Director's Office so we can collect any of those questions. Some may take some time to make sure we can provide written responses back. And with that, I'll pass to Damien to close us out.
Definitely thanks everybody for your participation today. I think it was some really good conversation in regards to our partnership with the larger community in Santa Clara County. Two things came up for myself that definitely we'll work on as the exec team, and our staff will engage the community in this manner. One is really having a clear understanding of how we're doing this prevention work. Wendy's team in regards to that prevention work that she's talked about. Not only that, but our conversations with other departments with our AB 2083 work. There's a lot of pieces moving, but we definitely want to make sure everybody is clear in regards to children remain at home only when safe to do so. When it's not safe to do so, they are brought into care. And there's a very clear line in regards to that social worker's assessment and what they do around that decision making. The second piece is just really having some clarity in regards to all of the things that are going on in the community that can support families. I think there are so many things that are happening. We may not all know what those are. So having a real good conversation with some community forums, specifically around what communities do, will definitely be something that we'll be looking to in the future. And I know some of the work that the prevention team is already doing. But appreciate all of your time. Definitely appreciate all of the work that's currently happening. And hopefully everybody has a good rest of the day and gets something to eat during lunch.
Thank you. That was very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.